Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies, and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. Books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode. Santa Barbara screenwriter Todd Goodlett talks scripts, drafting and revising, conflict, and more in this week's episode of our Summer Writing Challenge. Our quick tip for today is entitled The Writing Wonderland, and it feels like a wonderland when I consider the statistics for the 13th check-in. Not our final check-in, and we'll have 2 more interviews in September. On to our last August episode. Quick tip 13. Writing is a wonderland. Alice followed the white rabbit into a hole that dropped her into a strange world. Writing is like that, a hole into a strange wonderland. A project is an intriguing white rabbit luring us to follow even as it reminds us that the project has to meet a deadline or be late for that important date. Before I became disciplined with my projects, a lesson it took over a year to learn, I know, I'm slow. I would have allowed myself to nibble a sweet biscuit of a novel or drink a tea of a nonfiction book and just scattered my efforts everywhere. I've learned not to graze into upcoming projects unless a sure and specific benefit is offered. Our skewed wonderland operates by rules. First rule, for writers, for anyone pursuing a haunting dream, never stop. Never stop writing. Get to the end and continue. Don't leave the wonderland. Once we visit the Red Queen, we have many more places to explore. If you're pursuing traditional publishing, write that second and third and fourth novels while the first one is submitted to editors and agents. If you're an indie writer, having come to the indie world after giving up on trads or bypassing trads entirely, the greatest reward is having others read your writing and praise it. Rule 2. Treat your work professionally. If it's the dream you want, pursue it like a job. Present the best manuscript possible for your readers and hire pros to polish the manuscript before you publish it. Accept that nothing wonderful ever came easily. The writing community can be a warm and welcoming place, like a teapot with a splash of gin for a nice hot toddy. Yet even in safe havens, evil lurks. Don't be lured in. Don't be a curmudgeon. Use circumspection and wise business practices in dealing with others. Remember, a contract is a contract. Rule 3. Humans are visual, and the first attractors to books are the covers. Cover designers are more essential than editors. Some people will drop $4,000 on a developmental editor, then create their own cover or buy a generic one for $50. Covers should entice readers into the wonderland of your work. This is one expense you cannot skimp. Take the time to search the internet and find a designer whose aesthetic fits the tone of the book that you want. Cover designs should make your manuscript feel special because your writing is a wonderland, a special wonderland. Okay. So, Todd, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, my name is Todd Goodlett. I am a screenwriter and playwright living in Santa Barbara. I've been writing for quite a while. Let's see, 2019, I won the Final Draft Big Break Award, and that's opened a lot of doors. And so I was working on a project with the guy who used to run the head of Sony Television, and a guy from Criminal Minds, one of the producers. Unfortunately, the show was about fire and fire investigation. And so when the fire hit in LA, we were like, oh, we have to pause the project now. Everything's on hold. So, but it's okay. There's plenty of other projects to work on. So, yeah, working on those now.
Well, good. Are those your covers behind you?
Yeah. These are some. There's an artist that does some really unique Hitchcock posters, and these two are Vertigo, and I really love these. I love the artwork on these. I think the original ones go for thousands of dollars, but I found a place in the UK that does like prints for very cheap, and I really like these.
Right. Okay. So have you, uh, sorry, I'm having brain fade.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Okay. How do you view challenges in your writing?
That's a really good question. And I thought about it and I thought, what is the biggest challenge that I have for writing today? And honestly, it's not writer's block. It's not lack of time, although lack of time is always a constraint. It's really the challenge of staying true to myself, and staying hyper focused on my aesthetic, my voice, really the stories that only I can tell. And I've had to learn this the hard way. I don't know. I think most writers, I get this way. Like most writers, I think maybe get ideas all the time. Some of them they feel like good ideas, maybe marketable ideas. I've outlined many projects. I've written scripts, first 50 pages of a novel, entire acts of a play, only to realize, this is a good idea, but it's not for me to write. It's for somebody else to write. And I probably shouldn't be going down this avenue, because it has to come from like a
Blingy,
really.
sparkly idea that
Yes,
extra
exactly.
our
It's that
attention.
sparkling idea. And it's that idea that I think, oh, this is going to lead to like success, commercial success.
Mhm.
And it may very well, I don't know. But for me, it's writing from that honest place. That's what's gotten me the most attention out of writing. It's the stories that are lacking in the world that I want to see. Not necessarily what sells or what's trendy in the moment, or what people like my agent thinks I should be doing. And it's often stuff that, I find is risky. It's risky. It's a little weird. But it's the stuff I get passionate about, and it's the kind of work that haunts me, makes me want to get up at 5 a.m. and write it and finish it and look at it as a whole and go, oh, I've got something here. I like this. I really, if this gets made, I would watch this. I know I would watch this for sure. Maybe nobody else, but I'm the audience for this. And I feel really, really passionate about it. And so I found over the years, like not to compromise that inner voice, to push away the stuff that really on the surface, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, but it's not for me. That's for somebody else. Because I think the readers feel that too. They know when you're like really into something, you're really invested in a project. And it really
You
shows.
found your niche.
Yes,
This,
exactly.
mhm.
Yeah. You found your niche. You found your voice. I think that's a lot of times what people are talking about when they're like, I can really feel the writer's voice, because it's something very unique to you, and nobody else can really do that.
Right. And you basically branded yourself in a particular area with that niche, and it's very important that you maintain it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like 6 or 7 years ago when I was trying to decide, exactly what it was that I was writing, because I started writing and I was actually fusing some genres together and they were working, but I wasn't completely happy. And it was only when I clarified exactly, I wanted to write historical mysteries with a touch of romance, but not much romance in it at all. And of course,
Yeah.
the market is all about let's push the romance. And
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I was
Yes.
pulling back from that and I'm going like, I'm more interested in the puzzle
Yeah.
and how these people are getting together than I am interested in pushing the romance. And the mystery itself is
off to the side, which
Oh,
is
right.
where I see things. And so
Yeah.
finding what you want to write, I think, is very important to keeping you going,
Yeah.
because parts of writing are drudgery, quite frankly.
Yes. Absolutely. You're right about it. It's hard work. You write the first draft. I always like trick myself and think it's amazing. That's the only way I can get through the first draft. And then somebody else reads it and they start poking holes, and I'm like, and then I'm crushed and just, but it's, yeah, if you're writing from that personal place, and if you're writing the stuff that you want to see, you're going to roll up your sleeves and want to do the work to get it done. And you're right. I mean, that it's going to take a lot of hard work. So you need that drive. So
Right. And that keeps you. I went through writer's block last year, in the early part of last year, and I only dug myself out of it by really focusing on nonfiction. And then
yeah,
I was able to get back into the creative aspect. I don't know what was wrong with my brain, but just keeping going through there. And then when my brain started back up, it was just full of ideas that I had not had before. But if I had been writing what I was not interested in writing what into the market, so to
yes,
speak,
yeah,
like writing, what do they call it now? The Roman fantasy, or whatever that thing is called.
yes,
Uh,
absolutely,
if I was trying to write that, or I was trying to write something that was not really my heart work, I would have turned off writing entirely.
yeah.
Um, and
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find that way too. Like sometimes you have to switch gears. I have to go with a different medium. Like if I've been writing scripts for too long, it's like I have to write like a play, or
Mhm.
I started a novel last summer, and that was something I know really nothing about. But it was really, it fed into my creativity. And when I got back to script writing, it made that a lot better, because I just felt like my creative juices were flowing a little bit more.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
And I don't find that I repeat ideas. It's as if
Yeah.
keeping in what I love inspires ideas that go off in many different directions that I did not anticipate. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're writing to market, you're sort of writing to a pattern, and you're not interested in breaking that particular pattern. Screenwriters, of course, have to fit within certain things, but
Yeah.
you're not really following a pattern about what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is if you're writing for the market changes so quickly.
Mhm.
It gets, oversaturated with like, maybe vampire stories, or
Mhm.
dystopian was like really popular, and then
Yeah.
everybody gets sick of it. And so it's really hard to predict, what people want. You've sort of got to just create your niche, create your own story, and hope maybe you start the next trend. So.
Mhm.
Uh,
Right, right. So you mentioned Criminal Minds. That came out of the blue. There was
yeah,
nothing really on television like that when it
absolutely.
came on. There was something slightly similar, but there was nothing that was totally focused on profiling and finding the criminal aspect, and then dealing with the psychological aspect of the criminal.
Yeah,
Um, and so it fit a niche for that particular thing. But I don't think the original writers, the original creative emphasis behind that was, okay, what can we do, that's completely in this market, but slightly twisted. Well, maybe they were thinking that way.
yeah. No, I think at the time, it really was wholly original at the time,
Mhm,
and it got a lot of acclaim for that. And it's hard to see that now. I mean,
mhm.
that there's so much of that on TV, and everything is just like, true crime, and all the streamers are that they're spending so much money on that because there's a huge audience there.
Mhm.
And they've really tapped into that, profiling audience that, people want to sit there and figure out the mystery, like why did this monster commit these horrible acts?
Mhm.
And I feel like everybody's doing that now, but you're right, not a lot of people were doing that back then.
Mhm. And the original Law and Order, that
Yeah,
was totally new.
yeah,
There were lawyer shows, but they were not concerned with being in the court. There
yes,
were
absolutely.
detective shows, but they really were not police procedurals. They were
Yes.
more focused. I remember Hill Street Blues. I don't know
Oh,
if you're that
yes. Yeah,
old.
yeah, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they were more focused on the personalities as opposed to the cases that they were working. As if the cases were extraneous. And so Law and Order was completely new. It was not anything at all like what had been there for the previous 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think that was Dick Wolf was just
Dick
doing
Wolf.
something that was his heart project, and he
Yep.
was following along with that. It was
Yeah.
what intrigued him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And nobody was doing that at the time, and really combining like a lawyer show and a detective show, just putting it all in the same place. And that was very novel. So
Mhm. Right. What else do you see as challenges in your writing?
the other thing that I'm a principle to me personally that I'm really committed to is writing from a very personal place. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm pulling pages out of my journal and putting it just putting my life out there. But I really got with my protagonists in particular, I've got to connect with them, and usually their problem, their issue, is something that I have to be working on in my life. Maybe obstacles they're facing is something that I've dealt with
Mhm.
and worked through, or am trying to work through, because I found that personal connection really, really helps as well. Um, and it's something like the challenge of staying true to your aesthetic. Writing
Mhm.
from a very personal place keeps you engaged. It keeps you in the story. It keeps you in love with the characters and wanting to root from them, even if maybe they're anti-heroes, maybe they're doing bad things, but you can relate to them on an inner level, because the challenges they're facing are some of the challenges that you're facing as a writer.
Right. You're mining the truth of the emotion from your
Yes,
personal life and feeding that into your character.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely. That has really helped, and I would say, the projects that have gotten me the most attention, it's totally been that. It's like this protagonist is, there's a lot of similarities between myself and the protagonist.
right.
Uh, and I don't even know, like, the creative team, I don't even know if they see that necessarily, but I know that, and that matters. And it's why the voice and people love that character so much, because I can really, um, I can really tell that story.
Hmm. Right. It's like the start of Liam Neeson's Taken.
Yes.
Um, and where they're building the relationship between the father who loves his daughter so much, but he's being shuffled off to the side in her life.
Yes.
And he wants to be deeply involved in her life. And that drives him, uh, when that's part of the drive when he's wants to protect her so much. And then his greatest fear comes to fruition, and he has to go and pull her out of all sorts of trouble. Uh, but the truth of that emotion at the very beginning was set up and was made very clear to the audience, and it helped the audience suspend their disbelief basically in going through for the rest of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he goes to he goes to the store and he gets like a karaoke machine or something
Mhm.
because he knows his daughter wants to be a pop singer, and
Mhm.
he puts a lot of time and thought in that gift. And then I think it's, wait, what is it, the stepfather gets her a pony or something.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, and you feel for the guy. You're like, oh, he's really trying. He wants to connect with his daughter, but
Yeah.
there are obstacles clearly in place. But
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's the truth of that emotion helps carry you into the particular thing.
absolutely, yeah.
Mhm. How
Yeah.
else do you see challenges in writing?
Let's see. Other challenges I have are, I think, really, really not judging the material, not judging the process while I'm writing
Mhm.
the first draft, and just letting everything come out, um, just let it come out to the page, and try not to to edit it and want to rewrite it right away.
Mm-hmm.
There's time for that later. And I'm a big believer in rewriting and
Mm-hmm.
using a different side of your brain for that. And then you have to start going through it and looking at things as like, well, is this plausible? Does this make sense? Does this track emotionally where the character's at? And there's a time and place for that. But really not trying to judge the material too much, because I've gotten in this place too, where I write something, I write 10 pages and I think, oh, it's awful. And I walk away and I can't finish it. And because, you're your harshest critic. So it really takes a lot to push through and really get that first draft out there. And yeah. And then once I'm rewriting, I have this problem where I always start on page one. And this is why I think I can never be a novelist, because I have to start on page one every time and just go over it. It's like, okay, I got to go through it all again. Oh, it's not perfect. I thought it was perfect. I got to fix this. And I have to convince myself, okay, the first 15 pages are perfect now. Now I can really start focusing on the latter pages. And so that process is very tedious. It can be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I think I can never finish a novel, because I just don't know how people do it.
Oh, who was it? I can't remember. Was it Sarah Paretsky who said that she goes back through, and when she starts a day's work, she goes back like 50 pages and reads those 50 pages to get her up to where she is currently, and then she starts writing again.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that and not tinker with it, but it's like I'm always just like, oh, I got to fix this, got to fix this. I'll get to the end eventually, I think. So
Yeah. So your process when you're drafting, is it just to go straight through the draft, basically from page one to the end of it, or do you pick out scenes and you get those scenes and you build the bridges to those scenes? How do you basically handle your drafting process?
yeah, so I do. I'm a big outliner, so sometimes I will outline,
Mm-hmm.
10 to 20 pages, like single
Mm-hmm.
space,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that helps me skip drafts. And
Right.
to me, it's still writing. Um, and so I spend a lot of time with that. And then I sort of just puke out the first draft,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then really start going through and just fine tuning everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then getting it to a place where I think it's perfect before I send it out and get feedback from voices that I trust, because I
Mm-hmm.
know it's going to need work before I send it off to my agent or somebody that matters, that's going to be able to do something with it.
Right. Right. So do you have markers? Okay, I'm going to put a twist at this point and a
Okay.
twist at this point. Is that how you build
Oh,
to it?
yeah. I mean, there's a very fine structure for screenwriting and for TV pilots, the 60-minute or 30-minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've been doing it so long, I just sort of know where that is. And but yeah, definitely, I think yeah, first act twist has got to be really big. There's got to be something at the end,
Mm-hmm.
end of act two, that's really got to carry things forward. I spent a ton of time on the first 5 to 10 pages of my work, because I feel like if those don't just wow the reader, I they're never going to get to the end. There's just no way, because
Right.
I know the reality, at least in the entertainment industry. People got a stack of scripts. Nobody wants to read anything, and so you've really got to wow them in the first 5-10 pages, or it's over. So that has to be just so rock solid. So I do spend a lot more time on that than just anything else.
Right. So I'm not that familiar with screenwriting. How do you set up? Do you do a lot of exposition before you start the dialogue? How is that set up?
So audiences are so sophisticated these days that you you really you need exposition, but you really don't do it in the action lines.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to do it very sparingly in the dialogue. You try to get really creative with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many ways you can do things visually. I mean, this is sort of tropey, but panning over photographs to show family members. But there's so many things you can do visually without just coming out and saying something. And so that's something that spend a lot of time with, is really like looking at stuff and going, well, is that on the nose? Is it too exposition-y? Is there enough there where they can understand? And then I lean on the side of just taking it out. And then if it's confusing to somebody, then I'll put it back in. But I always trust that maybe the reader can hopefully figure it out, that there's enough there for them to go on. Because I don't want it to come off as too heavy-handed.
So where do you start? Do you start with when you're in your idea process for a screenplay that you're writing? Do you start with the situation in your brain, and then you start thinking about how best to get them into that situation? Or do you start with the character first and then work them toward the situation? How do you build that?
Oh, that's a good question. So normally for me, I feel like I start with a premise, like there's an idea or a premise that I find really intriguing. I read an article about Cary Grant and how he was like using LSD in the 50s in a clinical setting, and he was doing it like 100 times. And
Yeah.
I just got stuck with this idea, and I was like, well, maybe I can come up with an idea about LSD psychotherapy in the 1950s, and what is that world like? Is it sort of Masters of Sex meets Mad Men? So that was a world I just started with, and I was like, I'll build the characters around that. I think I probably should be doing it the other way. I should probably be building it from the ground up with the characters. But I always find like the premise that's the most intriguing, and then I sort of start, well, what sort of characters would live in that world? Why would they be there? What are the most interesting characters in that world? And then sometimes I have characters in my head, and I can kind of marry them into a premise, into sort of a high concept premise, and it sort of works. And so sometimes that works as well.
So when you're thinking of your premise, does the conflict come immediately, or does that develop?
Usually the conflict is there because I think I like things that I know there's going to be like a high amount of conflict. It's usually stuff that, if it's crime related, then that it's life and death. So those stakes are always high. So I usually pick stuff that it's going to be filled with conflict, and because I know that's the building block of stories. And once you get into the scene work, then you just need to. That's where you really start with like, okay, what is the conflict in this scene, and how can I up the stakes and make it stronger, I think.
Right. Do you find it easier to write internal versus external conflict, where there's something inside that they have to resolve, or is it the outside? I used to think that the internal conflict was difficult, and then I tried to write a really heavy action scene with a lot of people moving around in it, and I'm going like, this is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping track of all the moving pieces and everything. Yeah. That could be really difficult. And that's a really good question. I think probably the internal conflict is harder, and maybe it's because of the medium that I work in. I think sometimes it's harder to find. Although right now I'm working on a project where it's all internal conflict, and so I'm really looking at ways of how can I build more external conflict so it's not all in the character's head, because I know that's going to be something people are going to get stuck on, and I know it's going to be hard to get people interested in it if the external stakes are not there.
Yeah, and it's hard to in film especially. It's really hard to get that internal conflict out if you're not having somebody have a discussion with someone about how they're struggling with it, if it's all in their head. I remember the first Dune. I can't remember who filmed that,
Oh,
but
was it
when they
David
would
Lynch?
have the people talk to the camera, and I'm going like, this is not the way.
This is not, yeah. It's too much of a theater
Mhm.
device. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that one fails a lot in film and television.
Hmm.
Occasionally it's used well. I like when they use it in Fleabag. Um, but yeah, it's really hard to get the internal conflict. For me personally, I really like the voiceover. I use it a lot. People
Yes.
in the
Hmm.
industry hate it, but I think if you can really, that's really where you can get your voice to really come across on the page. And I deal with a lot of characters that are sort of misanthropic. They're sometimes loners, so it's like you need that to really get into their psyche.
Right.
So that's a great way to show the internal conflict in a script, and I think it's a great way just to layer, the thoughts of the character on top of the visuals, which I think when it's done well, it's really really powerful.
You're lucky if you've got a really good actor. I cannot remember who it was. I can't remember if it was Gregory Peck or who was that other one that I learned at the same time? It doesn't matter. Gary Cooper, but
Yeah.
his facial expressions, the camera focused on him and he went through three different facial expressions
Yes.
and you could see his internal conflict. And it was just, and I thought, he's a good actor.
It's incredible, right? I
Yeah.
think it's really it's so subtle, but it matters so much.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
a lot of actors can't do that. I mean, you have to
Yes.
show so much with just just furrowing the brow or just
Mhm.
a look.
The tightness of the eyes,
Yeah,
there are the way they bite their lip,
yeah,
or something like that. It can be powerful when they have that focus.
yeah.
And
When an actor can do that really well, then you don't even need the dialogue.
yeah.
Whatever they're thinking, it's just right
Mhm.
there, like in your face,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't it I don't know how they came to be such a good actor unless they had someone teaching them how to do that. This is the kind of expression you need. Okay, let's practice the next expression. Uh,
Yeah.
and Zoom just warned me that we're running out of time, and I'm going like, wait, that's
Oh.
that's. So, do you have anything you would want to promote? You don't? Do you have any short stories or anything like that that an audience might want to go seek out, or a particular?
I don't, unfortunately. Yeah, I know I need to get more. I want to write some short stories. I want to finish my novel. Um, I perhaps maybe a play in the fall, I think, but nothing official. No, so nothing to promote. But
Do
it's
you
really.
have a film that's people, the audience could say, "Oh, he did that. I can watch this." And
Oh no, no. I unfortunately I don't.
Mhm.
I just spent a lot of time just developing scripts with people. It's the industry is really hard. It's really hard to get stuff
Mhm.
to the final finish line. So I mean, we're still hoping for that with one of these
Okay.
projects.
Do you find yourself that you turn in a script and then the next thing you know, there's like 10 other writers working on it, and there's like they're taking your things and they're tearing it apart and adding it to it, and it's still yours, but
It's still, yeah, exactly.
it's not.
It's not, yeah. And I've been lucky recently. I've been working with a lot of people that they give me a lot. They trust, that, I'm
Mhm.
the writer. They give me notes, but
Mhm.
it's at the end of the day, they trust that, I'm going to do what's best for
Mhm.
the project, and I'm the writer, and so they trust me to do what's best on the page. And so I've had really good experiences recently with the team that I've been working with. So very
Well,
fortunate.
good, good. Well, Todd, it was wonderful speaking with you.
You
Uh,
too.
Good
Yeah.
luck with your short stories and novels. Get
Thank
some
you
of
so
those
much.
finished.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure talking to you too. Lots of
Okay.
good information. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It's our 13th week of the challenge, our 13th check-in. We're in the last full week of August, and it covers August 20 to 26. We still have 5 more days in August to use. We have a checkover for those 5 days, the first Wednesday in September, a wrap-up. For now, though, here's where we are. I am far past the original goal of 65,000 words, the required total that I wanted. Wednesday, August 20, I finished the podcast that I had started. I handled some business work. I sketched out the newsletter for next month, which is later than I like, but we're getting it done. Thursday, August 21, I finished the newsletter to go out in September. 864 words, but I think I can stop tracking now, don't you? The goal is achieved. Then I handled personal things and a few ticky biz details. Friday, August 22, time to tackle the final proofreading, chapters 1 to 4 today. 5 to 8 on Saturday, 9 and 10 on Sunday the 24th, and chapter 11, 12, and 13 on Monday. Along with corrections. Again, no substantial corrections, just words and a few details. The novella stands at 34,193 words, a little longer than anticipated, but that's a good thing. I'm pleased with it, very pleased with it. I'm pleased with how the Gothic elements worked out. It's a touch of Gothic in a mystery, and that's what I wanted. The touch of romance works well too. One thing that I haven't done is write the book description. I have the tagline or theme, but I haven't done the book description, and that will have to happen. Thanks for listening to The Write Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at thewritefocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.